think I forgot to record the lecture last week. It's always, I got to push all these buttons and do all these things to make this all work. So sometimes I forget about that. So my apologies. What we're going to do, and just one reminder, remember if you look on your syllabus, next week, our book report presentations. So if you could post your written report and it's probably best for me to have a PDF of your PowerPoint slide. So post your report is either a Word doc or a PDF, but slides are easier to manage as PDFs, and I'll try to get those all set up on the system here. So what we'll do is we'll have each of you that have a submission, I'll run through your slides while you talk over them. Again, kind of in pre-COVID days, I'd have each of you standing up in front of the classroom, which is always good experience. But that's not how things are going to work this year. So we'll do the best we can under the circumstances. That make sense? And I'll send out a reminder email to you again later in the week. But hopefully you are busily working on that stuff. Don't put it off to the last minute, because that's a lot of work to do in a short period of time. Any other questions or comments before we get going? Okay, well, we're going to talk about LEED strategies again tonight. As you remember, we spent a couple lectures kind of talking about the fundamentals of the LEED rating system. And now, again, and probably throughout the rest of the semester, we'll be talking about the strategies. What are some of the strategies that you can employ to make your building or your design or your project, greener or more sustainable? What are the things that are in the toolbox? So we're going to talk about sustainable sites and water efficiency tonight. So we will start off with sustainable sites. And this will, to some extent, be an outgrowth of what we talked about at the first half of class last week. Remember, we had a lecture on stormwater and rainwater. Stormwater or rainwater management is a part of sustainable sites. So hopefully when we talk about those strategies, you'll remember those from what we did last week. Okay, just a reminder, when we talked about location and transportation, or LT, the first credit category, we said location, where you choose to build the building or do the project, is extremely important, right? That kind of sets the stage for everything else. Where you choose to, or where the owner whom you're working for chooses to locate the project, has a lot to do over the sustainability possibilities of that building. Again, just a reminder, same things we talked about before. When at all possible, we want to try to choose redevelopment or infill development, right? Infill means that you're picking a site or developing a site that exists between other buildings. We want to renovate existing structures if at all possible. That's called adaptive reuse. I think I had a slide about that the first or second week. Develop sites between existing structure, that's infill development. If possible, remediate brownfields. Remember, brownfields is a previously developed site that has some kind of environmental contamination. That contamination would typically need to be remediated. So, You know, that's often a challenge, and sometimes that challenge scares people away. But you know, getting rid of those environmental contaminants and turning it back into a useful site and a useful building, that's a good thing. Clearly, we want to locate near existing infrastructure if possible. You know, that reduces the cost for utilities. It avoids sprawl. It avoids spreading development out across the metropolitan area. It keeps development more consolidated or more compact. Again, we want to avoid greenfield development if at all possible. So again, gray fields and brown fields. You know, my colors didn't come out too well there on my slides, but those previously developed sites, those are desirable from a sustainability standpoint, right? A greenfield site, an undeveloped site is certainly less desirable. You know, we can't avoid greenfield development, but we want to try to, you know, minimize it if at all possible. So what are some of the things, some of our design strategies for sustainable sites? Again, first of all, if we are in a greenfield location, we want to try our best to preserve open space and sensitive areas that might exist on that site. Sensitive areas, as you see at the bottom there, might be wetlands or bodies of water or wildlife habitat, right? If we have some of those things on our site, we want to try to avoid those. We want to reduce the footprint of the building. So make the building like, unfortunately, in suburban development or development outside of the city center, it's often cheaper and easier for developers to spread out, build one story and build large, right? If we avoid that if we can. We'll see your video in lower quality. I'm going to try to do here for the moment. Maybe that'll make things a little bit my computer happier. Hopefully you're still hearing me here. If not, please put something in the chat or send me a text.
You're breaking up a lot.
Okay, that's not good. I got a little here that's saying I'm not good. I'm taking a break for 1 second here and get a drink of water, fill my water glass. And maybe the IT or the internet gods will smile on me. Sit tight for a second. I'm sitting a little red warning thing here. I don't know what that means, but I will try to go forward here again. If you're not here, you're not understanding me well. Yes, I did turn my camera off just so I didn't chew up as much bandwidth. Let's try it that way for a moment. Yeah, it's telling me a lot of audio loss here. I don't know why that is. Okay. I'll explain what floor area ratio or FAR is in just a moment. Again, for the same size site, my red light turned off, so maybe I can turn my video back on here. Right, so for the same size, we want to try to reduce the footprint of that building. We want to try to minimize hardscape, right? Hardscape would be impervious surfaces. Hardscape would be the roof of the building. Hardscape would be surface parking. Hardscape would be walkways and plazas. If possible, we want to try to put the parking underneath the building or stack the parking up in a parking garage. You know, tuck under or under building parking means that the the building is on top of the parking. Again, those are the things that are, you know, always done or quite commonly done in development that's in the city or in the close-in suburbs. And people do it that way because, you know, land is expensive and land is limited. But as you get further and further out from the urban core where land is more plentiful, and development tends to spread out, we want to try to avoid that if all possible. Again, in our site design strategies, we want to use native and adaptive vegetation. Adaptive means that vegetation that's native plantings are obviously things that have been in this climate for a long time, so they're used to operating under with limited rainfall or periods of no rainfall. And adaptive vegetation would be vegetation that is adapted or selected for our climate as well. We want to try to reduce the needs for irrigation and landscape maintenance. You know, ideally, we're not going to surround our building with acres and acres of turf grass, because that turf grass requires a lot of irrigation and maintenance, which we want to try to avoid if at all possible. Here's a definition of FAR, or floor area ratio. That would be the floor area of the building divided by the lot area. So as the FAR increases, it means you're putting more building on the same size lot. That makes sense? So again, if we want to, you know, having a higher FAR is desirable, but that floor area ratio is also going to be regulated by zoning. Remember, we talked about zoning a few weeks ago with the R1, R2, R3. You know, again, on a commercial parcel, again, FAR will be regulated by zoning. So even though a higher FAR may be desirable from a sustainability standpoint, it may not be allowed based on zoning. Or other design strategies, we want to try to avoid light pollution. We're going to see what that is here in just a minute. And if possible, if there are certain parts of the site that have, you know, that are sensitive areas, we're going to try to protect and possibly restore that habitat, right? Maybe there's parts of our project site we want to set aside. We want to say we're never going to develop or build here. And maybe we have some kind of management plan that directs how the site will be used. Let's watch a little video here about what we're going to watch a short video called Losing the Dark. So let's watch that here, and then we'll come back, and that should give us an explanation about, you know, why we want to prevent light pollution. So let me switch things here. Hold on.
We live on the surface of a planet, spinning on its axis once every 24 hours. Its rhythms of day and night are embedded in the biological makeup of all life. During the day, we bathe in the glow of the sun. As night approaches, darkness takes over. It's a time to rest, to rejuvenate, to marvel at the beauty of the night. Until just over a century ago, our night skies were very dark. Now, even the wilderness is invaded by light. Our cities glow at night. Buildings are lit up. Unshielded lights blind us as we travel along our streets and roads. All these artificial lights overpower the darkness. The waste of energy is obvious, even from space. Much of that yellow glare the astronauts see comes from streetlights. They produce most of the light pollution on the planet. The glare is scattered by the atmosphere, creating sky glows over the landscape. We are losing the dark of night at the speed of light. Light pollution threatens the health of every living thing on Earth. Lights at night disrupt plant growth. Unshielded lights contribute to the deaths of countless land and sea animals each year. Migrating birds crash into illuminated buildings. Newly hatched sea turtles mistake the glow of electric lights for the shimmer of the ocean's surface. Bright lights at night also directly affect humans. Drivers and pedestrians temporarily blinded by poorly designed lights have suffered tragic accidents. Light pollution poses a silent threat to our health. Exposure to light at night disrupts the circadian rhythms that regulate our sleep cycles. People working at night under bright lights or living in light-polluted cities face a higher risk of developing diseases such as breast and prostate cancer. Here is a night sky with typical light pollution. On a good night, only the brighter stars and planets pierce the glow. This is what the night sky might look like if we could remove the light pollution. That faint band of light stretching across the sky is the Milky Way, our home galaxy. Because of light pollution, many people have never seen it. Astronomers know all too well the problems caused by lighting up the night. They need clear, dark skies to study the many fascinating objects in the universe. Light pollution simply washes out their view of the cosmos. Lighting up the night sky wastes money and fossil fuels. To keep a 100-watt light turned on every night for a year takes the equivalent energy output from burning half a ton of coal. Multiplied by the billions of lights blazing up from Earth, the cost of energy we use to light up the night is colossal. While lighting is needed, there are some simple things we can do to ensure that it's neighborhood-friendly, energy-efficient, and helps preserve dark skies. We can replace light fixtures that send light up to the sky with ones that direct light down, exactly where we want it. They're called fully shielded fixtures. We can also illuminate only the places that need it. And of course, we can just turn off unnecessary lights. These are smart ways to use lighting. They offer simple solutions to problems caused by light pollution. We have a choice between wasting resources by sending light to the sky or learning to use light more responsibly. Light pollution is a problem each of us can help solve. Together, we can bring back the dark of night to planet Earth.
Okay. Yeah, that's the flat screen version. Again, that was always something that I would show when we would go to Cernan. We're not doing that this year, so we have to watch the small screen, flat screen version. And so again, starry skies are a vanishing treasure. You know, some of us, you know, I remember when I was a kid, I would see the Milky Way and lots of stars at night, and I certainly don't remember that. You know, when I've been out camping or out away from the city more recently, right? So that light pollution not only threatens astronomy, but also disrupts our health and that of animals and wildlife. And we're also wasting a lot of money lighting the sky, pointing light upward rather than having it directed downward, right? We saw a good example of steps that we can take as designers and construction professionals to reduce light pollution. And we saw these fixtures, or you might remember seeing fixtures like this, or the fixtures in the parking lots at, right? These are dark sky compliant light fixtures. We're having that light directed downward. There's less glare upward. And most importantly, we're using less energy to provide the same amount of illumination, right? Illumination is you know what we need to see at the ground for safety to make our way around campus at night. You know, illumination is something that we need. But having a lot of wasted light pointing upward in the sky is something that we don't need. So again, reducing light pollution is a good design strategy, and it's part of, you know, one of the strategies in the LEED Sustainable Sites Toolkit. And so along with design strategies, we have maintenance strategies, right? The folks that design and build the building are going to turn over the completed project to facilities, to operations. Operations has to make sure that they continue to do the things that were designed into the project, right? This is the world of LEED EBOM, or operations and maintenance. So again, the facility folks who are running the building are likely, or hopefully they're going to have a sustainable management plan that would include, you know, the herbicides or pesticides that would be used and hopefully minimized on the outside of the building. You know, the strategies and things that are used to wash or clean the building, wash the windows and clean the building. If there's a land that has been set aside as part of the site, you know, how are we going to protect and restore that land, that part of the site that's been set aside? That would be a conservation program. Obviously, facilities would be responsible to maintain that site lighting, that dark sky compliant light fixture, make sure that that light is maintained and controlled appropriately over the life cycle of the building. Talked a lot about this stuff last week before the midterm. rainwater or stormwater. I think in earlier versions of LEED and LEED 2009, they used the term stormwater. In LEED version 4, which is where we are now, they refer to this as rainwater management, but those terms are interchangeable. Again, we're trying to reduce inflow, right? Inflow is the stormwater that directly enters the storm sewer system. Increase infiltration. Infiltration is the rainwater that soaks into the ground. And if necessary, either detain or retain that stormwater on site. Detain, slow it down. When we played those videos from the Triton STEM fair, there was a detention basin where we slowed down how that rainfall or that stormwater was released into the stream, so we can detain or retain that stormwater on our site. I had this slide last time, but I should have, I added the little red text there to correctly define what this is called, right? All the dog poop and all the motor and all the spilled motor oil and all the chemicals and the dirt and all the other stuff that's on our streets and our sidewalks that the rain washes into the storm sewer system. Those are called non-point sources of pollution, or NPS, non-point sources. So over the years that we've been trying to clean up our environment, we've been relatively successful at cleaning up point sources of pollution. A point source of water pollution, would be the pipe where the factory used to dump stuff out into the river, right? That is a point source of pollution that's coming from a single point. We've done relatively well at cleaning up point sources of pollution. And now we're trying to tackle the non-point sources of pollution, and this is much more challenging. But no less important. Two terms that you might see in this context: LID, or low impact development. It may also sometimes be referred to as green infrastructure, but low impact development would be systems and practices that use or mimic natural processes that result in the infiltration, evapotranspiration, or use of stormwater in order to protect water quality and associated aquatic habitat. Again, these are the things that we've been talking about, right? Making sure that we keep the stormwater from running off of our site. This is sometimes called low impact development or green infrastructure. Just another way to talk about the things that we are talking about now and talked about last week. So again, what are some of the design strategies for rainwater management? This is largely a review from last week. We want to minimize impervious surfaces, increase infiltration. We looked at porous paving materials as one way of doing that, or porous walkways. We want to detain that stormwater with a rain garden, or a dry stormwater basin, a bioswale, or a green roof. Again, next to the H building, when we walked around, we saw the rain garden. That's a stormwater or rainwater management or detention strategy. Underneath the parking lots at Triton, we have a retention strategy. We have those cisterns that are buried under the parking lot. We also, I think last time, saw a slide of a pond or a stormwater retention basin. So again, all those designs are also going to require maintenance. So along with a design strategy, there are maintenance strategies. We want to make sure that those things that the designers designed and the construction team built into the building are actually used over the life of the building. You know, a rain garden or a bioswale or any of those natural features are going to require some maintenance of the plants. Green roof is going to require maintenance as well. We have to operate our cistern, right? Maintain the pumps and controls. Again, at Triton, the water that's stored underneath the parking lot is pumped out and used for irrigating the grounds. Another way that rainwater could be used is in, as I say, there a water feature, a fountain. So again, those things all have to be maintained and operated to meet the intent of the designers and the construction team. Okay, one of the other concepts that SS or Sustainable Strategies deals with is called the heat island effect or urban heat island effect. You see in the lower left there, this has to do with the fact that temperatures in the urban area in the cities will often be hotter than in the surrounding countryside. You know, on a hot summer day, it's often warmer in the city than it is in the surrounding rural areas. Now, in Chicago, on a hot summer day, sometimes you get a nice wind off of Lake Michigan, so it's cooler by the lake, but in many cases, this is what a temperature profile would look like if you took temperatures across the metropolitan area. You know, why is that? Well, in an urban area, we have the sun beating down on black or dark surfaces, roofs and parking lots and roadways. And we don't have that rainwater that's evapotranspirating or transpiring from the plants, so we get no cooling effect from evaporating rainwater. And obviously in a rural area, the sun is shining down on a farmland or forest or grassland, right? That absorbs less heat than those dark surfaces in an urban area. Again, in sustainable sites, we're trying to utilize strategies that mitigate this urban heat island effect to the extent that we can with one individual building. What are some of the ways we do that? One would be using reflective or high SRI, solar reflectivity index. You see I defined it at the bottom there. So reflective roof materials, often called a white roof. Again, you know, we live in a brick city of Chicago with lots and lots of flat, dark tar roofs on all our 3 flats and 6 flats and courtyard buildings. You know, we would be able to mitigate the heat island effect if folks went around and when they did a re-roofing job used a light colored high SRI roofing material. Obviously, we also can mitigate heat island effect in our designs by reducing hardscape, right? Reducing the amount of parking lot. Parking lot is quite often, you know, paved with black or dark asphalt, like that absorbs a lot of heat. You know that if you walk around your bare feet, try to cross the street, right? Street is hot summertime. Reduce hardscape if you need to have it there. Go for lighter colored paving materials. If possible, shade that hardscape with trees. And maybe even create an urban forest, right? Again, in the town that I live in Oak Park, in many streets, we still have shade trees that cover the street, right? That tends to mitigate or reduce the urban heat island effect. You know, a green roof on the building is also a good way of mitigating the urban heat island effect, right? Green roof is a strategy that has multiple benefits. So again, SRI is a index that ranges from 0 to 100. 0 would be a dark absorptive roof. 100 would be a light colored reflective roof. So again, what does a white roof look like? Well, in our case, you can look out the windows of the studio and look across to the each building next door. You see that light colored roof, that white roof. White roof absorbs less heat from the sun. It reduces air conditioning costs for the building. It also helps mitigate the urban heat island effect. Again, I had this slide a couple weeks ago. The green roof does double or maybe triple duty as a sustainability or green building strategy. Right? That green roof is going to reduce the urban heat island effect. It's going to help detain stormwater, and it may also provide habitat for pollinators and desirable species. Again, much more likely to see an extensive green roof, extensive being that thin layer of soil, right? That's much easier to work the weight of that soil and the water that it contains into the structural design of the building than it would be to carry an intensive or thick soiled green roof. Again, along with design, there is maintenance. Along with BD&C, there's EBOM, existing building operations and maintenance. So the design team that designed the building with the white roof, and constructed it, facilities are going to have to make sure that that roof stays clean over its lifetime, that the reflectivity of the roof is maintained. You obviously have to maintain the landscaping and the trees and maintain that green roof that you put in. Right, so let's look at our scorecards here, right? Again, I put all this stuff up I have all these scorecard files as Excel files. They're on Blackboard. And then I have the summary reference material, the summary guides for all the credits and the rating. I have those up there as well. Again, here you can look at sustainable sites. So we talked about rainwater management. We talked about heat island reduction. We talked about light pollution reduction. Those are the major areas that we have credits available to us in the sustainable sites credit category. Again, building design and construction, sorry, that should be BD and C credits. Those focus on design. In EBOM, or operations and maintenance, the credits focus on how we operate the building. Same sort of things, but they would be written around operational practices and maintenance practices. I had a couple under BD and C. You see we have a prerequisite. Remember, a prerequisite is something that you have to do, you must do. Credits are optional, prerequisites are mandatory. Obviously, you have to do enough credits to, get our score up, but prerequisites are things that we have to do. So what is construction activity pollution prevention? That's a prerequisite for sustainable sites. What does that mean? Right? That means things like reduce pollution from construction activities by controlling soil erosion, waterway sedimentation, and airborne dust, right? We want to make sure that the soil on our construction site that we're going to be disturbing by our excavation, by our activities, make sure that soil stays on the site and doesn't blow away, doesn't wash it into the storm sewers or the waterways, doesn't blow dust around to our neighbors. So again, the BD&C guide is on Blackboard. You can also download all the stuff from usgbc.org. Sorry, that should be ORG, not ORD. ORG like the organization as opposed to ORD, the airport. The definitive guide to all these things are the reference guides. That has all the complete details, exactly how you score all these things that you have to purchase from usgbc.org, or your firm might have a copy of that already. The other thing you saw there as a credit was site assessment. Remember, early on we talked about we want to do things in an integrative design process. We want to do things early in the design process. So site assessment we would do early. We want to find out what we can about the site, all the topography, the land features, hydrology is the water, climate, vegetation, soils. Right? These will all be things that we would want to find out about our site prior to design. Any questions? Okay, we're making good time here. I'm pretty sure, hopefully, on the LEED section of Blackboard, I should have posted a set of questions for sustainable sites. So what I'm going to do here is break you into groups. We'll spend about 10 minutes having your groups look at those questions. We'll come back and check in, and then we will take a break. So I am going to find the magic button here that breaks you into groups. Hold on a second. Breakout groups, here we go. Okay, that makes sense, folks? Again, spend 10 minutes, maybe a few more, looking at the questions, and then we'll come back and I will check on you. Okay, got it? You're a very quiet group tonight. Hopefully you're still out there.